This is Mongolian Mindset, and today we're going to be breaking down the ISTJ. And the first thing I want to say is, guys, these are not the guys who are just running around high, dumb motherfuckers think they are talking about tradition. But what they are doing is they're keeping their storehouse of experiences, their routines and things of that nature. So we're gonna be breaking that down today. So even if you're blind, deaf, and dumb, you can spot what an ISTJ actually really is. And Christian, you got anything you want to say before we get into this?
Yeah, I would say, usually people don't talk a lot about the SJs, but like we said on this channel, the SJs kind of run society. So it's kind of important to know how these guys operate, because if not, you're gonna run into roadblocks left and right, maybe at your job, maybe in relationships, maybe at your community centers, or even your HOAs. So it's important that you know about these guys so that you don't get surprised when they try to rail you for not following, the structures, rules, etc. Okay, so pay attention. Don't click off the video. Very important video. Let's go.
And I want to say one other thing is, all the information, all the breakdowns that we do, you cannot cherry pick the information. And why is that important? Because it's like a video game. If you learn only your character, then you will only know how to fight your character, right? But once you learn everybody else, you know how to fight against everybody else, right? And that's going to set you apart, right? Me and Christian used to play a game, Soul Calibur, right? And the first thing we did was we learned our characters and we mastered our characters. But then when we got online and we started playing people, we didn't know the other people's mix-ups and traps and all of that thing, and we would lose because of that, right? So then we took the time to actually learn the rest of the characters, and boom, we were ready to own people online. Okay,
Hmm.
so remember that same system applies to type as well, guys.
So don't be lazy. Don't be lazy.
All right. So who are the ISTJs? We got two people up here. We got Warren Buffett. I think he um, symbolizes ISTJ pretty well, even his investing style. What does Warren Buffett do with his investing style? He always sticks to the tried and true method, right? He only invests in banks, railroads, things that like chewing gum, right? He's not betting into the future. Amazon, Apple. Well, he did start buying Apple later on, but like he's
AI.
not betting on the new cutting edge things. Why? Because those things can go out of business when you could just bet on the things that are always going to be here, right? Even if you don't think a bank's not going to be here, the bank will just transform themselves in different ways. Like maybe they'll get into um, crypto and whatnot, right? And they'll be the biggest players in cryptos, and you won't even really notice it. But it'll be the banks who run all of that shit, right?
Yeah.
So that's more of his philosophy. And then we have Ben Shapiro here. He's a little bit more out there, changing things up. Um, some
And
people
we'll
may
see
like him.
why following a couple slides, because we're going to talk about the different subtypes as well. So you want to stick around. Also, about Warren Buffett, the tried and true has more likelihood of working than the future projection. That's why a lot of people lose money trying to future project their way to wealth. Okay. But
Mhm.
Warren Buffett, tried and true, steady wins the race. Probably the one of the best, if not the best, investors ever. So ISTJs, very powerful type. Make sure you pay attention, like I said. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, very good at that, balancing the checkbook. So, holistic view, guys. So, they have a strong sense of responsibility and loyalty to the organization, families, and relationships. Prefer to work alone and accountable for results, right? Will work for a group if it is necessary for the job, but job roles need to be clearly defined where people feel established responsibilities. So clearly defined, right? They're affiliative, so they want those roles to be clearly defined, right? Pragmatic people don't really like to get clear defined roles, right? Because they don't like anybody taking away their freedom. But the affiliative do like that, okay? Earn success by thoroughness. These guys are very meticulous. These guys come around, and David Kersey has them in there as the inspector, right? Because they can pull up your shit and be like, okay, this is out of order, this is out of order, this ain't in temperature, this ain't, they can pull out that and tear your ass up. Very meticulous, precision and dependability. Take pleasure in making everything orderly or organized. That's that TE, right? Organized environment. Talent lies in administrating and regulating, right? Moto is slow and steady wins the race. Even when we piggyback back onto Warren Buffett, slow and steady, right? A lot of people blow themselves up when it comes to investing. Um, Me and
Same
Christian
with
do have a video.
real estate as well. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of people that are successful in real estate, they didn't do it by going too fast. Okay. It's slow and steady, for example, you know. Well, he's not ISTJ, but Dave Ramsey, you know. Dave Ramsey with the no debt strategy. Slow and steady, you know.
So competence and responsibility are extremely important, and they expect others to be dutiful and trustworthy, right? Duty is attached to SI, right, and being affiliative. They have a storehouse of information from prior experiences. This is where they kill you at, right? Everything that happens to them, they store those experiences and they can draw back onto them, right? That's why this SI is nasty out here in the streets, um, which they draw to understand present, apply the information to future scenarios. So they aren't future focused, but what they have used or have been a part of, they can use that to handle certain situations,
Mm-hmm.
right? I heard an ISTJ talk about like he just goes in his little black box in his head of experiences and pulls them out for whatever he needs at that particular time. This focuses on a task, structure, or system as a whole, not individual, right? These guys are systematic, so they're not looking at the individual. They're not looking at like what the people or what people get out of a situation. They're looking at that system. What does the system say? How can I tweak the system? How can I get the system to go the way? Um, so they believe standard procedure exists because they work, right? That's the problem where a lot of people get in trouble with, the SJs. They're big on those procedures, but they don't really modify them as much as a lot of us would like them to do. And that could bump heads, especially with the pragmatic people, because you may have 24 steps to do something, but let's say me, on the other hand, I can see 12 steps that need to be done. But if the ISTJ watching, you better do all 24 motherfucking steps, right? Um, will only support change when facts demonstrate change will get better results and comply with regulation. See, that's a big thing. Like you can't just cut down the steps with them. You got to also make sure that it complies with the regulation, right? Or you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So next time you're trying to convince an ICJ that you should cut some corners here and there, make sure it complies with the regulation of whatever that is. Well, whatever device it is, whatever the manufacturer say on it, make sure it complies with that. If not, you're gonna get slapped. Can become rigid about time, schedules, and procedures to make sure things go by the book. Are seen as practical, sensible, realistic, concrete, systematic, logical, analytical, detached, calm, reserved, serious, conservative, consistent, quiet, orderly, value tradition, routines, comfort, accountable, and dutiful. Right. So, any major takeaways from that, Christian?
Mm, only that if you're a pragmatic person, it's gonna be hard to deal with these guys because they're gonna be checking your work constantly and making sure you follow all the step, and it's freaking annoying. Now we kind of work in an industry that's kind of like that, so you know, I kind of have some experience with stuff like that, and it can get annoying. A lot of times I get frustrated. I tell them, hey, just let me work how I want to work. But if they're the boss, here's what it is. You're gonna have to follow. Okay. So
Like I said, if you're gonna cut corners, just don't cut corners when they're around. Straight up, just is what it is. Find yourself in some shit. All right, Christian, go and take it.
all right, so ISTJs, they tend to dress neat and conservative in a classical formal way with a preference for comfort. Okay, so they're not going to be the fashionistas of the world. Okay, makes sense. Think about Ben Shapiro. Okay, not exactly breaking new ground there. Okay, the phrases to win them over is here's what's worked before, or here's the traditional way of doing things. I have documentation that this worked in the past, right? Because they're using their SI as their framework of what works, what doesn't. Okay. Uh, they take away their family, work, and community roles, and you take away their source of energy. Prefer stable environments. Stability is high priority. So probably if you put them in an environment where it's a traditional role, maybe in a maybe like a middle management position or whatever of an established industry, they'd be very comfortable there because there's an established framework to work off of. Okay, they want to be seen as good parents, good workers, even like a good kid in a parent to child relationship. They want to be respected for doing the right thing because remember they're affiliative, right? The self image is around being dependable, beneficent, and respectable, being useful. Okay. They trust authority. So again, affiliative, right? As opposed to pragmatics, they tend to not like authority. They yearn to be to belong. They seek security, stability, gratitude. And they aspire to be executive. Right? Probably has to do with TE in some kind of way, and we'll explain that later. They practice logistical intelligence over other forms. Okay, so that's logistical intelligence has to do with like past data, like reproducible results and stuff like that. Okay, again, SI. Problems can occur when concentrating on logic too much and not considering impact on other people, or fail to respond appropriately to others' needs for connection and intimacy. So they don't do well with that aspect of things. They prefer to rely on, again, the logistical intelligence over the social dynamics. They struggle with seeing the bigger picture and future. Why? Because they're past focused. Okay, so they're not going to be breaking new ground again. Okay, they're not going to be anticipating um, destabilizing of industries and preparing for that. Okay, they're basically playing their life by the rule book, and that could be a problem because you could get surprised by a new change that happens quickly, etc. Okay, but we'll see how in the future they might be able to deal with that a little bit better as we go along on this presentation. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this that they're very good at middle management because they're able to stabilize things quite well, right? You get things going. Once you got things going, you bring in your SJs to get some of the stabilization. The only problem with hiring too many SJs is you dampen yourself on creativity, right?
Mhm.
Because they're not going to be looking to change much things up, right? So that's the unfortunate thing about that. But if you do need somebody to come in and establish like procedures or anything like that, they're very good at that. Right?
Mhm.
Um, so, guys, how do you identify an ISTJ? They are direct, so they use closed-ended statements, right? They're specific, concise, and to the point. They usually have a time or task attached to what they're saying. They're not open like an informative person. They're not beating around the bush. It's just there. Like Christian said in the last point there, they're not really great with like sugarcoating their words sometimes. I mean, it kind of dampens it a little bit because they're affiliative. So they do a lot better than the INTJs and the ENTJs. But generally speaking, that little mask can slip off and you be like, damn, this person really don't care how I feel. Or this person, only cares about how I feel after they, felt good, right? So
Mhm.
that's one of the things, the progression or process or journey. So to them, they're looking at the process to do things step by step is how they do things, one foot at a time. To them, life is more of a journey than looking at just like end products, right? They're affiliative, so they care about cooperation. All of us like mingling together to get things done. Interdependent, collective, seeks acceptable, right thing to do. They're gonna be big on what's the right thing to do. Oh my lord. And a lot of times what the right thing to do for them is something that they've seen throughout their life, right? When they were younger or whatnot. Rarely do they ever challenge things that they've been through or seen, right? Because it just, you know, it is what it is. They're systematic, so they focus on structures and systems. So when they go about things, they're looking at the structure, the system, how can I get control of the system? They're not looking at okay, what somebody gets out of a situation. They don't like as in Christian on the other hand, he feels comfortable and happy when he knows what everybody gets out of a situation and then he can move forward. Right.
Mhm.
They're like, no, what's the system here? They're concrete, so they focus on what is, what's real, and they primarily focus on things from the past, like things that they have seen work, right? They're not going to be pushing the future or anything like that. And they're responding. So they're introverted. They like people to come towards them to initiate things. Christian, thing you want to say?
I think you handled that
Yeah.
appropriately. So.
And me and Christian have had ISTJ like coworkers and things in the past.
Mhm.
I think Christian struggles with them a little bit more than me
Yeah, agreed.
because he Christian is an STP. And I'm an NTJ, so like we still are systematic.
Mhm.
So NTE, so we can kind of blend on that TEFI. We can kind of talk on that same language. While Christian, on the other hand, it's kind of like totally different than them. SENINTIFE.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. It's just like
Right.
the whole strickler for the rules, following systems. They just seem very passive, non-dynamic. Just from my perspective. I'm not saying they are like that, but I'm just saying from my perspective, compared to me, they seem like that. So it almost seems like we're two different types of people. So there's not a lot of interaction there.
Yeah. Even though Christian's married to an SJ, but whatever. Uh, keep going. All right, so we got the ISTJ cognitive functions here, guys. So SI hero is to preserve, protect past ways of doing things, right? Use SI to absorb, integrate, and reflect, acquire information and personal experiences. They're going to prefer a more routine and careful and predictable lifestyle. They're pretty good at monitoring bodily sensations. That's important, right? Because like people like me who have SI trickster, we're terrible at monitoring bodily sensation. Only like during like afterwards do I realize, oh shit, like my body's about to tap out, right? I've talked about the time Christians had to wheelchair me into the hospital, right? ICJ is going to know that 10 years before that happens because they are very close to their like homeostasis. Um,
Mm,
so the big thing about this is they're very good at comparing the past with what has worked. I mean, like let's say for instance, if you were in a room, right, and you move something, right, they can come in there and they could be like, okay, this thing was moved from this spot to this spot, right? That's where the SI's really gonna shine, and they can like basically break down like exactly what's going on from past experiences. A lot of time, those lawyers will get you on SI related stuff because they want your story to match exactly the same SI you gave them. So if
mm,
you're dealing with lawyers or you're going to court or something like that, they're very strong on SI. So they want you to match your exact story, and they're going to remember your exact story. So they'll go ahead and be like, oh, well, you said this last time, or you said this last time, right? So you want to make sure that that SI does stay up there. They prefer comfort and performing the same like regular tasks over and over. Um, Anything you want to say about that, Christian? SI
mm,
very resistant to change,
I guess what could I say? I
routine.
could say just think about, because they have SI as their hero. So you got to also associate the positioning of this function. It's at their strongest function. So they use it a lot. They refer back to their database, like Mercer mentioned, the little black book. They're gonna do that
Mhm,
often. Okay, that's their way of they're operating on that type of framework. Okay, and if you look down, we have the opposing personalities SC. We'll explain that later, but they can
mhm,
enhance that SI eventually with some development, and we'll detail that a
yep,
little bit later. But
yeah,
initially, it could be very limiting to just rely on past events, right? You're not really
mhm,
projecting into the future. You're not preparing for the future. You're just going off past framework. You can see how that could
mhm,
get a little bit limiting in their
yeah,
acquisition of data, etc. Okay.
yeah. So I mean, the SI hero, to say what Christian was saying, it contributes to them being closed minded a lot of times, right? Because they're just going off what they have been through, and they like to stay into that routine or whatnot, or duty or whatever the fuck it is. Very resistant to change, right? Um,
Mm,
That could be a big thing there. And you gotta guys gotta remember when it's the hero function, it's like the Goku. Like the story is basically written about this motherfucker. So in this position, it's written by SI. It's gonna be very hard. People don't really notice how hard it is for somebody to let up off the hero function. Very hard for them to let up off of it.
mhm.
So
Especially at
yeah.
an early age, you got to understand that, because on this channel we happen on developmental process a lot, and everyone goes through a natural progression. But it takes time. It takes time, especially these introverted functions take time, to kind of get out of. It's not like you're using them to interact with the environment as much, right? It's just like the way you think. That's harder to kind of be self-aware of and kind of go outside of, I would say.
Mhm.
So yeah, SI hero could be very limiting in the ways that you're basically just kind of one note, you know, you're kind of one note in that way. Like you're not really stepping outside the lines with that function
Hmm.
in the hero spot. So,
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing about SI hero. They're very sensitive to stimuli experiences, right? So you'll see that play out even in the typing sessions or whatnot. If somebody's talking about those experiences a lot, you'll notice that. So now we're getting into TE parent, right? This is where they try to parent others, and this looks like with external sources. A lot of times, external sources, things that are measurable, organizing the environment, knowing exactly how much time it takes for a task to be done, streamlining systems, right? This is going to support SI. So they're gonna be they're gonna be referring to the past and using systems, right? That's how they're gonna be kind of running this because that SI and TE going that TE is gonna be helping the SI, right?
mhm, mhm,
So it's gonna make sure that they stay in the past, right, with the TE. But it's outside frameworks, timetables, streamlining. They naturally think in systems. Yeah.
mhm,
A lot of times people don't really notice that there's a critic that kind of hits people, right? And it makes sure that their T parent is even sharper when it comes to external sources, right?
mhm.
I wouldn't say they're as great as another T hero in organizing the environment, but when it comes to the sources and whatnot, and being knowledgeable and factual on what they think or things of that nature, or external sources they take in, they're a lot better with that,
Yeah,
right?
and keep in mind
That's because of TI critic.
having it in the parent spot is not the same as, for example, some other types that we've mentioned that have it in the child spot. Like these guys are
Mhm,
going to be way more stringent on those sources and making sure that they're, accurate. Again, that TI critic will defend that parent,
mhm,
so they have it as
mhm.
a nice 1-2 punch in a pretty strong position. So these guys are past focus, but the sources that they're acquiring usually quality, you know. So that's why
Quality.
they're so
Very
good in, for example, middle management positions, because they're very capable with the past data, you know. So, yeah.
mhm. Or like, establishing procedures. This is gonna really come into that the play here. So yeah.
Mhm.
You can really notice TE parent because they're trying to if you try to give TE parent some information, they'll slap it down with TI critic and make you take their TE. Like on the server the other day, a TE parent was getting on somebody, and they were like, basically, you need to be more responsible with your thinking. Like, oh, like how could you quantify this data? Like, and they keep going on the TE data. It's like, oh shit! So they're slapping them down with TI critic and forcing you to take TE parent, right? That's a lot of times how the dynamic work with the critic and the parent. Sometimes they attack you with it so that you have to take theirs.
Mhm.
Um, very nasty. And now we're getting to FI child. So they're kind of childish with their values, staying congruent with who they are. A lot of times it can show up as them being self-righteous, right? A lot of FI child people can be self-righteous, and then like you'll see like them kind of contradict that self-righteousness a little bit. Um, uh, Uh, I mean, they believe in their inner values, their core needs. A lot of times, the big problem with this one is they can get in the SI-FI loop, and what that looks like is basically I'm only going to do things that I'm comfortable with, or things that I've been in, or things I've experienced that make me feel good. If it don't make me feel good, then I'm not going to do it.
Mm.
Right. So you can see how they could get stuck in this, and this can really hurt their uh, progress in life because they're just shutting down anything that doesn't make them feel good and doesn't make them comfortable or isn't something that they have seen before.
Yeah,
So it can shut down a lot of things in their life.
because they're past focus, it'll be things that they've done before, so they get stagnant, they get stuck in their comfort, and like we've mentioned on this channel, getting stuck in comfort basically just slows down your progression in life,
Mhm.
overall. So big
And I
danger
mean,
for ISTJs.
yeah, can't make decisions off like emotionally satisfying, right? That's gonna be big. That's gonna be a big problem there because you should be making decisions off TE, not FI, right? So that's a huge problem. And now we're getting to any inferior. Chris, you want to take that?
All right, so any inferior, as we know, any is about identifying patterns, possibilities, connections, and opportunities. So potential patterns, abstract. It's an abstract function, but these guys are concrete. Okay, which makes sense because they have it in the inferior spot and it's not very strong. Okay, the problem
Mhm.
with that is because they're relying on the SI hero a lot, and like we mentioned, they're kind of very systematic and they have TE parent. Then sometimes the SI hero could get a little tired, and then all of a sudden they're trying to rely on NE. And then what that's gonna do is that they're gonna do something kind of impulsive, or they might be trying to find new experiences or whatever, something future focused that they're not strong at, and it might be actually bad for them. And we'll go into that when we go into the grips, but that is a challenge for ISTJs, that they don't give this function room to breathe. And if you don't give this function room to breathe, it will come knocking to hurt you later. Okay, like we've mentioned on this channel, this happens with every type. If you neglect a certain aspect of your personality, it will come back to haunt you. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go forward. We'll talk about the grips in the next slide. Yeah, go ahead, Merce.
Yeah. So like any inferior, they because they're always using SI and they kind of don't want to change things up, they're very closed-minded, right? They're always sticking to the same thing. So they will be very dismissive to patterns, reading between the lines, what could be, anything when it comes to that realm, right? They could get some fear of what could happen, right? I don't know whether they got this fear of, oh, this could go wrong, this could go wrong. And like basically just trying to change things up is not gonna be very not gonna be something they do a lot, right? Can be concerned or fuck, suspicious about potential dangers and become risk avoidant, right? That's gonna go back to it. Because of this function, they're gonna be hyper risk avoidant. Like what could go wrong? They're gonna be looking at it. It's in that fear spot, so it's gonna scare the shit out of them. But overall, once they get better at this can allow them to open things up and be more creative, right? Read between the lines, use some type of intuitions here and there to make the SI better because SI is going to grow with more experiences. If you close it and put it in like one little realm, then it won't grow, right? And you won't have a storehouse of information. You have like a little fucking lake of information, right? But if you're out here using your NE and your SE, like how we're going to get into it, then you will have an ocean of experiences to pull back from, and you'll be
Mhm,
able to stabilize any situation, or more likely to stabilize any situation.
mhm.
So that's very important. All right, so now we're gonna get into SE opposing here. So that's like as
Well,
we talked about earlier,
mhm,
basically SE allows you to be more tactical. These people are not very tactical people. But with the SE opposing, it will allow them to go outside of the loop and try more things and be in the moment and trust their instincts, right? And by doing this, it will grow their SI because why they're getting more experiences. More experiences give these people more armor, right?
right.
The more armor they get, the better they can do. Um, and it's going to allow them to be more flexible. But they're going to be, paranoid. They're going to be very paranoid about doing SE related things or being in a moment or whatnot. Okay, but as they do it over time, like later in life, when this is growing, then it's going to be a source of strength for them.
Yeah, and
Anything
remember,
you want to say? Chris?
SE will just allow ISTJs to get more data, and that more data gets stored into the SI data bank. Remember, these people operate off that data bank a lot. And another thing that's going to happen is they're going to be less impulsive in taking their SI data and using it. Right, like as we mentioned, opposing personalities, what they do is they slow down that hero. Right, it makes it more methodical. So SE will put them in the moment and more likely to slow down their use of past frameworks, because sometimes the past framework is not going to be successful in that moment, right? And initially they don't have SE opposing developed, so they'll just go with the past framework and fail. But over time, they'll take their licks and they'll learn, okay, no, let me slow down and make sure that the past framework works here in this moment.
Mhm.
That's SE opposing. See, it slows down that SI hero and makes it more methodical, more surgical, more effective, you know, overall allowing them to take on more data with SE. Okay.
Yeah. So if you didn't notice what we're doing here with any inferior and SE opposing, this helps them deal with the fear of uncertainty, right? Because if they can get these two under their belt, they can deal with the uncertainty, which scares the shit out of SI hero here, guys. Now we get into TI critic. This is the most annoying thing here about any TI critic or T critic in general. Is that this one can identify flaws and incongruence in people's ideas or systems. Oh, that don't make sense, or that's wrong, right? They're gonna hit you and nail you right then and there, or this you won't see it as bad as INTJs or whatnot, because INTJs might be this dumb motherfucker or this stupid, like that, or that shit don't make no fucking sense. They're more likely to be more affiliative about it, like to point it out and be like, hey, that don't make no sense, or that's wrong here, or be very stubborn on like anything that you miss, right? Even if you use a word wrong, right? They're gonna be bam, slap you right there. No, no, no. Like everything you said is wrong because you said that one word wrong, right? Very strictness on that. But this can help them be more nuanced in their thinking, right? That's the reason why their TE parent is so developed when it comes to like the information and the knowledge, because they have to get over their own critic, right? So over time, they've been critiquing their own information. So if you try to provide some information, you're gonna get hit by their critic because their critic got to make sure it's good information, like it would do to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, point out flaws, using data and evidence, question someone's assumptions, can lead to a lot of negative criticism, stagnation, and personal growth. Right? It's gonna hit them. It hits them just as hard as it hits other people. But as they grow, they can learn to lighten up on themselves and the other information of other people. TI critic can be a bitch.
Yeah,
Um,
TI critic is gonna make it very hard for you to present new information to ISTJs because they've already verified it. That's the thing. Like they probably already read the source with T parent that you're trying to provide. They already criticized it with TI critic, and they either discarded it or accepted it. If you go with them with the source they already have, then SI Hero already has it. They're direct, so they might just tell you they've already read it. And if it's wrong, then they'll just poke holes in it with TI critic and reject it outright. So very hard to get ISTJs to think outside the box, because they have these functions so powerful in their stack, So
Yeah, I mean, and then they're gonna refer to like the past with that as well, so it can be overwhelmingly hard. It's kind of where Ben Shapiro nails people a lot of times when he's debating them,
mhm.
right? You
Mhm.
just find one little spot where he can pick in an inconsistency, and then he can open you up from there.
Mhm.
Um, and then he can slam you with all of his empirical data and information with TE parent, and
Mhm.
now you're just like losing here.
Yeah.
So very important to see. They have FE Trickster, so they're not so great with understanding outside harmony, um, or just like understanding social norms. But these guys have it less hard than the pragmatic types, right? Because they're naturally affiliative, so they'll learn over time. And also, they got an SI hero to remind them of like traditions or how things go and what's worked in the past. So it doesn't hit them as bad, but you will see the mask kind of fall a little bit when they start getting, let's say, when they're not as comfortable, right? When the SI is not as comfortable, you'll see the mask fall and you'll say, "Oh shit, like this person really doesn't have any empathy," right? Or they'll struggle to make those connective bonds with people, understand like, well, I don't understand why that person cares so much about this or anything. It could be a very bad place for them because with FI child, they're so optimistic about what they care about, but they don't really understand what other people care about, right? So that could hit them there because they'll be like, well, I don't care about that. Why do they care about that? That's a problem there, right? You gotta understand that people have different values, and not everyone values aligns with your own, but they can get caught in thinking that their values is what everybody else also value. So that could hit them there. And just maintaining like relationships and interpersonal skills can be very tough for them. So that's what you'll see. But there is ways that people can manipulate with the trickster function, right?
Mhm.
Um, if you want like a perfect video or something of somebody using FE Trickster, go watch Death Note, and you will see how Light uses FE Trickster to try to say, "Oh, oh, L, I would never do that. L, don't do that to me. I'm your friend. Oh, you think so? Like he's using Effie Trickster to kind of manipulate L, right? So you can see ISTJs and INTJs using Effie tricks to manipulate people as well. Um, doesn't happen with the more developed versions of the ISTJs, but it can be used, right, to defend the ego. Chris, you want to take NI Demon?
So NI demon, I mean, pretty straightforward. Like we said, these people are extremely past focused, so they're not really projecting into the future or looking for changes or anything like that. They're very kind of stagnant in their ways. So as we know, NI is about vision, focus, and transforming yourself or what will happen in the future. ISTJ is largely unaware and uncaring about that. In fact, it might make them uncomfortable because, like we said, SI hero. So
Mhm.
they'd rather not even think about the future. Just go with what works.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes they can catastrophize like the worst case scenario, right? When they try to use their NE or NI, right, and try to prepare for it. That's the big problem there. Can lead to anxiety with trying to forecast the future or unpredictable futures, lead to analysis paralysis on anticipating future events, right? They don't know where to even begin, or they may just try to prepare for everything.
Mhm.
Make it difficult to trust intuition, right? They're not going to be trusting intuition. Um, or they may even like scoff at intuition. Oh, why you care about that? Big fear of the unknown and avoidance of risk yet again, guys. So as you guys see that SI, they're always going to lean heavy into the SI. Just like I said with Warren Buffett, he's not trying to anticipate what's going to be the best stock in the future. He's like, okay, the banks have worked. They always work. Take the fucking banks, right? Bubblegum. People are never going to stop chewing fucking bubblegum. I don't give a fuck what is created, right? By the fucking bubblegum. Don't get out here trying to bet on who's going to be the next Tesla, right? A lot of people go bankrupt trying to find the next Tesla. He's like, no, no, no. Get the railroads with this high moat. People can't get into it. They're always going to exist to a degree. So that's
Mhm.
how you could see that play out, right? Just straight up not even caring about what's in the future, guys. So, yeah. All right, Chris, you take this.
All right, so like we mentioned in the past slide, the any grips, right? Grips happen when the hero function gets exhausted. So a short-term grip for the ISTJ is usually when they can't solve current problems. They try to find a familiar explanation for the new challenge, and they may become frustrated. So they try a quick fix, sometimes with consequences that cause even more damage, right? Because they're relying on NE, right? A potential pattern or possibility that's not their strong suit, and it leads them to creating even more damage and exacerbating the problem. So then this could lead for them impulsively quitting a job or spending money they can't afford, right? They leave town without a plan, so they're impulsive, right? Usually, ISTJs are not very impulsive, so they're not really that strong at improvising. So it could create even more problems, and it could create that positive feedback loop, basically, derailing their life in a way. That's short term grip, right?
Yeah,
Long
I'm gonna
term
say something about
grips.
that. Sure. Hey,
Go
let me
ahead.
say. So I actually have an ISTJ coworker, and she told me that like something similar happened. Leaving town without a plan, and she moved all the way to Florida. So, it does happen, right? Yeah, basically like an ENTP takes over, and ENTP ain't got all his usual controls, and he's like, "Fuck, I gotta blow this bitch up." Within the time before the hero gets on there, and he does some impulsive shit. So that's how I kind of see it. That's just making fun of it. But
Hmm.
ENTP or ENFP, because they are any hero, they jump in the fucking driver's seat. It's like I gotta have as much fun as I can have before the hero gets back online.
Yeah.
Right? She ended up leaving
Seek new
town.
experiences, essentially. Like we
Yeah.
said, the inferior will come knocking if you don't give it room to play. You know, same with the child, same with any function, really. Uh, Long term grip, ISTJs may become addicted to owning new things, like we said, new experiences, right? And find their house overwhelmed with grown collections and clutter. So what happens is the ISTJ kind of associates these things with a novelty, right? So novelty stimulus, right? And because the SI is exhausted, it kind of goes offline. So it's like Mercer says, they're seeking a novel experience, right? Like quickly, right, without thinking. So they collect all these things, right? And so what happens is ISTJs tend to be systematic, but then they tend to lose structure when they're under these long-term grips. They start losing facts, dates, find themselves in mental fog. So now their SI, like I said, offline. So it's not operating to the same degree. They start being a little sloppy in their thinking. Okay. So what happens with long-term grip. So you got anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, you basically nailed it there. Like they're gonna just try like little quick things to get any going over time, and then it's gonna clutter up because they get attached to the new things with the SI, and it's hard for them to get rid of it. Then it continues to pile up, pile up, pile up. Um, but yeah, if you notice yourself being in the doing or collecting on collections of anything, then maybe you're thinking, hey, maybe I'm in a long term grip here, right?
Hmm.
And I just need to figure out a better way to use any than what I'm currently doing by cluttering up things. That's the important thing. Notice a way that you can use any in a better way.
Now, Mercer, you want to take on ritual in the next
Yeah.
one? But
So habitual grip, unable to fully shut down the voice of NE, but poor at interpreting its patterns, right? Like we said, when you don't, a lot of times people don't really realize all these functions, they come back to usage. Like it's just like a fucking sport or anything you do in life. The more you use it, the better you get at it, right? So for instance, the ISTJ is always using SI and TE and FI, right? And the chance that they try to use any, bro, you never use this. So you're a novice when you're using it. So you like crash course with it. You are not an ENTP when you use NE. I'm sorry. It's not working like that. So you're gonna run into a whole host of problems, right? You ain't gonna be able to read those patterns, right? Because ENTP been doing that his entire life. He's got a high degree um, with any. But you, on the other hand, you never use it. Now you're trying to use it. It's gonna be problems. They will fear that every situation will end in calamity. That each new person is suspect, right? Because any can make you paranoid, man. All about what could be. Seeing everything, right? But you're not used to doing that. Now you to open up the whole playbook. You're not ready for it. So anxiety over impending doom will cast a shadow over the ISTJ's life, twisting any from an optimistic function into a perpetual pessimism. So generally speaking, no matter what, extrovert intuition is optimistic in its function because it's thinking about what could be, right? What are the possibilities? What are the novelty here, right? But for them, it's going to lean into the pessimism of it. Oh, everything could go wrong, calamity here and there. Um, as the ISTJ becomes increasingly closed off, they will become bitter about missed opportunities they denied themselves, right? Because hindsight's 2020, baby, right?
mhm.
All those opportunities you have for yourself, you didn't cash in on them. This is the most difficult grip to disrupt. It wasn't built on proof or reason, so no proof or reason can counter it, right? So you gotta remember these intuition functions focus on intuition. So if you try to use them, right, there's no proof behind these intuition functions,
Mhm.
right? So you can't counter it with proof, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the most dangerous part about this is the whole thing about becoming bitter about missed opportunities. Because, like we said in the previous slide, because their past focus and comfort kind of follows that, they can realize later on all the opportunities they missed. Because a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
opportunities are behind discomfort, right? So you got to kind of chase discomfort to get those opportunities. And these people are not really likely to do that, right? Like, for example, like one of our coworkers in the past, like she's been in the same lab for I don't know how many years, and she's not really going to shake the boat that much. She's probably going to be there 30, 40 years. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
one day she'll realize, oh shit, I had so many opportunities I could have followed and didn't because I was just in my comfort. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard
Mm-hmm.
to get over. You if you're not, like we mentioned on this channel, purposely developing, you could fall into that trap very easily if you're an ISTJ. Um, so that's why it's important that you kind of go outside your box and get some of these tools, so that you don't
Yeah.
fall into these traps.
Yeah. And as Christian said there, this seems to be a SJ problem itself as a whole, right? because they're always playing things by the book. They're always doing things just as it is, and not really going outside of what they're used to. They miss a lot of opportunities in life, right? Because the opportunities are usually outside of your own comfort. So you're never going to hit those big moves or those big risks that you potentially could have done, right? So then later on in life, all you can live with is, damn, I should have did this, I should have done that, I should have done this. Damn, I just played it safe my entire life, and this is all I got. And that can kind of beat you up there. So,
Mm-hmm.
got it. Okay, so this is the one-sided SI. In the dark group, the ISTJ here gets largely unnoticed, right? That's a big thing about ISTJs. They're not playing the main character of their own game a lot of times, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Life is quietly depressing with a smothering routine, right? Big on that fucking routine. As a consolation, he or she enjoys others' success and relaxes with vapid entertainment. As an antidote, what the fuck? As
Cautious
an antidote,
protector.
the cautious protector here may be tempted to engage in underhanded activities such as embezzlement, gambling, illicit affairs, blackmail, and false claims, right? Ideally, these bring benefits while not physically hurting anyone, right? He or she also may also keep company with questionable characters, acting as a lackey for those of high status or who act dangerously in the name of trying to reform or support them while issuing caution, bailing them out, and shouldering their dramas and failures, right? So
Yeah.
what I see here is like the ISTJ is not choosing their own life; they're kind of taking a back road to somebody else's life, and maybe this person is a person who is a questionable person. Like they, may try like SE things, or they may just try any things, and then they'll just try to stabilize that person's life or whoever they're with.
Mm-hmm.
So with SI,
You
right?
you're probably wondering why would they do that? Why would they do that? It's because even though this person's a unstable, probably dangerous person, at least they're bringing novelty, right? Because remember, this
Mhm.
is we're talking about grips here. So when SI gets overloaded, their life is basically boring. It's basically too stable, too boring, too safe. Now they are basically outsourcing their risk to somebody else. This person's
I mean,
providing new experiences. Okay.
I would say they're begging. They're begging on their knees for some type of excitement, some type of change, right? So because they're not providing it for themselves, they got to seek somebody else to do it for them,
Hmm.
right? And that could get them in a lot of trouble. But overall, they're going to be enjoying the novelty because that's what people sometimes they a lot of times they crave their inferior function. So if somebody's helping them do it, then they'll stick by them, right?
Yeah. And
But
this could
they're
be
taking a back road to life.
Yeah, this could be even like a partner relationship, like a romantic relationship. It could get very, they could enable
Toxic.
somebody who's in a
Mhm.
destructive path, right? You got to think of ISTJ in a grip like this is an enabler because they're stabilizing that person who doesn't want to be stabilized. Like J. Cole famously said, she don't want to be saved, then don't save her. You know what I mean? But ISTJ is more likely to do that when they are in this grip mindset. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're an ICJ, make sure you switch up things here and there because you don't want to be dependent on somebody else for fun and excitement in your life. So best way to use any for ISTJs, right? So what you really want to do here is you want to take time, maybe once a week, to exercise any so that you can avoid grips and one-sidedness, right? So we basically detailed it already, right? Why you want to try to do this to prevent your grips, because this is going to allow the ICJ to become creative and adventurous, right? You'll be okay with the uncertainty or the unknown, right? You're going to build up the confidence, and the more you build up the confidence, the better you're going to be, the better results you're going to be. Um, so give yourself the novelty you crave. I would say plan like a trip somewhere you've never been, eat at a different restaurant, try a new hobby. Basically, the goal is to break away from your routine,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Now, I just want to add this. So, I just as a general tip, a lot of the times if you want to do something outside of your nature, what you could do is you could trick yourself into doing it. For example, in this case, NE would be like a different novel pattern possibility, right? But you're concrete and you're systematic. So what you could do is that you put it on your calendar. Put in your calendar actually concretely in your system. But this is a time for new experience, right? And you put it in your schedule. So now you tricked your brain into thinking it's a system, right? But really you're doing something new. It's the same with like if you're bad at your feeling functions, but you're a concrete, direct, person. I recommend you write it down and you put it into the concrete realm. Same thing. In this case, you're putting the spontaneous activity, the new activity into your established system schedule, right? So you're like kind of blending the two. It makes it more digestible. It's like taking medicine with like a candy, you know, flavor wrapped around it in a way. So
Mhm.
just think about that.
Yeah. I mean, just try new hobbies, man, like, sports, new book club, there's a million things you could try. So just get out there and try something. Just, you don't need a lot to do it, but just, here and there, and you're gonna thank yourself for it later. I promise you that.
Hmm.
And guys, here are the subtypes. Chris, you wanna go over this?
Sure. I mean, we've talked about subtypes before. They correlate to your hormonal, basically your hormonal levels. So essentially, if you were high testosterone, you tend to be dominant. If you have more estrogen, you tend to be harmonizing. Dario Nardi came out with a more concrete way to establish who's dominant, who's harmonizing, who's normalizing, right? So we
Mhm.
could go through a couple examples. So, for example, Ben Shapiro.
Yes.
Okay, so Ben Shapiro, we go with the what is it, the parent function and
So we
the
go with your strongest judging function and your strongest perceiving function, right?
right.
If both of those functions are dominant, you will become dominant, right?
Hmm.
So what we know is about Ben Shapiro is he's very hard on keeping people in the past and regulating the past, right? He's not really going with the flow with it, like somebody like Warren Buffett. So what we
Hmm.
would say about him versus Warren Buffett is Ben Shapiro has analytical SI, while Warren Buffett has holistic SI. Right? He's
Hmm.
not really holding your ass to the fire with his SI experiences. Right? He's kind of go with the flow with the SI. But he makes sure SI is in his life. Right? That's what I would say about Warren Buffett. He makes sure his life is about SI, but
Yeah,
he's not trying to hold you to it
yeah.
or society.
So that would make Ben Shapiro a dominant ISTJ.
ISTJ,
Uh,
because also his
mhm,
TE is managerial,
mhm,
right? Both him and Warren Buffett have managerial TE. So based off that formula, that would make Warren Buffett a normalizing ISTJ, and that would make Ben Shapiro a dominant ISTJ, which is
right,
a lot of times why I think Ben Shapiro got INTJ, but he's not an INTJ. He refers to the past too fucking much.
right.
Um,
So there
yeah.
you go. That's how subtypes can kind of present differently, even if you're the same type. And we've mentioned a lot of those in our previous presentation.
Yeah. And I would say like my coworker that I currently work with, she's an ISTJ, but she's a harmonizing ISTJ. So she has holistic SI and she has holistic TE. Mhm. So she's not really trying to focus or hold people to the past like fucking Ben Shapiro has
Hmm.
or judges. Right. And guys, these are our references. As you guys know, we take our time to go through several books to make sure we give y'all the best information. So when you watch this video, you can say, I don't need to read all these books because Mercer's done it for me. So yeah, I should definitely get some fucking comments below. Thank you, Mercer.
Closing statements, ISTJs, very powerful type. They could be very managerial, and you're going to have to deal with them in your daily life. So it's important that you know them and you know their playbook so you can react to the things they do. They're very useful for companies, etc. And I would
Mhm.
say if you are an ISTJ, make sure you're getting in those new experiences and you're not running away from discomfort too much because, like we mentioned here, it will come knocking at some point, or you might regret the opportunities you missed. And a way that you could do that, like I said, is that you need to schedule new experiences into your calendar because you're probably systematic. You probably have a calendar. You probably have a routine just make some space or some new experiences within that routine. Okay, that's the easiest way.
Yeah. And I'll say again, like these people aren't the people that you would think, oh, tradition, tradition, tradition. They're more routine, 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 or what has been in the past, right? They may not, you're not going to just see somebody saying, oh, I got to go to this for tradition or whatever. You're not really going to hear that with the everyday ISTJ. But what you will see is that they stick to their routine. They're very systematic, they're very dutiful. What they say, they're going to do, right? Can be a little bit of self-righteousness. Uh, but
Mhm.
that's what you're gonna mostly see from these people. It's not like, oh, the person who's always preaching tradition, tradition, tradition. That's usually not it, right? And that's the reason why a lot of these people will go mistyped.
Yeah. Also, if you're gonna bring in new information to ISTJ, try to change their mental processes or their routines, it's gonna be very difficult. Make sure your information is on point because these guys have TI critic. Okay. So the
Hmm.
information they're consuming, they're constantly criticizing and verifying that it's logically um, there. So if you bring some bad information, they're gonna just tear you down for it. Okay. So
Hmm.
make sure it's good information, and it's probably generally going to be very hard to give them new information because you
They're
know
stuck in their ways.
they have a database and they remember all of it. So
Yeah. I would say if you're dealing with a critic, just flat out just listen to the parent. Just hey man, you know what? Man, what information did you get on this? Right? Now you're feeding in the T parent, right? So you're gonna get the critic off you because now you're listening to the parent. They'll be like, oh well, I got this information right here, and this is where you could get this information from, and this is why it's correct and everything. So if you find yourself under attack from a critic, just go straight to the parent. Hey mister, I'm here. I'll listen to you, and then you'll get out of underneath the critic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I got another one. Be wary of being an enabler if you're an ISTJ. That's a very dangerous position to be in because you don't want to be in the background of somebody who is trying to derail their own life. Like J. Cole famously said, don't save them. Okay. They don't want to be saved. Just leave them alone. Uh, you know, play to your strengths, develop yourself and find the right partner for you who's also stable. Okay. So you don't have to enable their, you know, and if you want new experiences, there are healthy people out there who are more spontaneous. Maybe you could be with a healthy SP, and that could give you the new experiences you crave without having to, basically enable somebody who's destructive.
Mhm. And also, that also if you're in a relationship, ISTJ, remember to switch things up. I've never seen anything that bores a woman faster than doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And listen to me, I don't give a fuck if she's an SJ woman. I don't give a fuck if she SP woman. I don't give a fuck if she NT woman or NF woman. They don't want to do the same shit over and over and over. So always remember, hey, I need to change some shit up here and there. Maybe we'll go out here to a movie, or maybe we'll switch it up to this, right? Don't just do the same thing and get stuck in your ways, man. Oh,
Yeah,
you're doing this at the same time. You better switch that shit up. Just remember Mercy in the back of your head. Switch that shit up, bitch. Switch that shit up, bitch.
and yeah,
Um,
I actually didn't think about that. Yeah, in a relationship, if you are a man ISTJ, that's a huge challenge because, like Mercer said, it doesn't matter what type the woman is, she's gonna want experiences. It is what it is. It might be a generalization, but hey, it's a generalization for a reason, okay? Because bro, 90. I'm gonna say 95 out of 100 women are seeking experiences, and if you're not providing experiences, good luck, man. Like the clock is running. Maybe SJ women will require maybe less,
less.
maybe slightly less,
But
slightly.
then their NE, is still gonna go talking to him eventually.
Yeah.
NE gonna go talking to them too. So
And not
you have
only
to switch it
that,
up. You have to do
the
something
social
different.
pressure, because then the other women in their life talking about their experiences. Now they're gonna be thinking, why aren't you providing experiences? So do not be stuck in your ways when you're in a relationship. ISTJs, please, because I'm telling you, like bad shit's gonna happen if you do that.
Yeah, and like we say over here, guys, we know in certain communities they tell you, "Hey, I'm an SI user." Okay, congratulations. you know what you do predominantly. Like that's your right hand. But you better fucking learn how to use your fucking left hand, or you're gonna get a host of fucking problems. Okay. Look at all of the people who have tricksters and look at the big glaring assholes that they have, right? Because they can only use a right side and they can't use a left side, right? A left hand. Right. So remember that. If you are an SI hero, make sure you use some SC2, right? If you're going to use TE, make sure you use TI too, right? Don't do one, don't just do one because you're leaving yourself open to just gaping holes, dude. Swiss cheese effect, baby.
Facts. And that's the name of the game. I think this was a great video. If you're an ISTJ, drop it down in the comments. If you have to deal with ISTJs that annoy you in your daily life, drop it down in the comments. And stick around in the channel. Go watch our Duke Dennis video, one of our best videos. And stick around because we're coming with more breakdowns. And we'll catch you on the next one. Mercer, you got anything to say before we go?
This is number 8, man. This is number 8, guys. So we got 8 more to do.
All right, man. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.
Peace.